Thank you all for being here. We have, I am Graham Smith. I'm the vice chair. I'm serving in the absence of Reverend Taylor, who is on a work sabbatical for the next 3 months. And so that is the only excused absence I know of. We need a vote for allowing it?
Yes, a motion to excuse them.
Second by Mark. All in favor? Opposed. Okay. Now the minutes for approval, minutes were distributed by Wayne recently via email. Anybody have any comments, any suggestions, changes, anything like that, or would like to motion to approve?
Would you approve?
Seconded by Ann. All in favor? No opposition. Minutes are approved. Public comment. I believe we have one speaker signed up for public comment, Mr. Michael Johnson with CP&P, concrete pipe and precast, I believe, and that's the only speaker.
Yes, we do have one other public comment, but we're going to take care of that during that specific rainwater rewards presentation.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Mike Johnson, concrete pipe precast, we manufacture drainage pipe, structures, et cetera. But as a marketing manager, a lot of my effort is education. And also, more importantly, I belong to an organization called Caroline's Concrete Pipe Products Association. It's a group of 6 producers in the Carolinas who pool their resources to continue education. And what we end up doing is educating engineers, designers, municipal and private engineers. And a lot of the education we do when we do drainage seminars and such and proper installation inspection is not only concrete pipe, but other products. And we're all about proper installation because the stormwater systems aren't properly designed and properly maintained, inspected, et cetera. Certainly that issue. So a lot of what I do is stormwater and also citizen Raleigh as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your interest in company's interest. All right. We have commission stormwater staff update. We'll go to Nicola and see if she has a planning commission updates and it's the liaison to the planning commission.
Yeah, thanks. We actually have quite a few to bring to your attention today. So on the annexation, so there's a few annexation hearing, planning commission meeting, and also an additional one after that. So starting with the annexation hearing, there's actually quite a large one up in Six Forks and Strickland Road. And so that one would be an annexation and currently with the county and the annexation into the city of Raleigh, they've been using that for using that to serve as a church afterwards. This is kind of interesting because it's in the Falls Lake watershed. And so actually, you know, we have to comply with 40% forestation, up to 30% impervious, and also they have to treat for nutrients such as nitrogen and phosphorus as well. That's kind of one of the larger ones coming up in the near future. So that's January 17th. Two more front on the planning commission side. One of them is a really small parcel. It's 0.06 acre parcel, and it's currently within the FEMA floodplain. So if you remember, a few months ago, we were not discussing the new regulations say you can't develop if there's no building or kind of any structure on there. So this one actually is a really small home, and it's scheduled for public hearing on early February. But what they're trying to do is redevelop a current house. It's a really small building currently on there with a driveway. What they're trying to ask to do is kind of rezoning, excuse me, and that's on, rezoning 0074, redo the building store there. So it's a really small plot of land to redevelop it there. So kind of unique after since in the floodplain, there's a few extra conditions that would have to go around with that, but a very small footprint would have to stay within that same footprint that they're already in. The other one on the planning commission side, would be same. It's the only reason why it's kind of unique here is it's also in Swift Creek tributary, so it complies to comply with those same watershed, specifications there. So the 40% forestation wanted to treat for some of those nutrients as well, up to the 30% imperviousness. That one's on Jones Franklin Road. It's another one that they're kind of looking more of a potentially doing single family dwelling unit or having 2 places there. On the public hearing side, two more scheduled for late January. So coming on up, these are some larger parcels that are looking for the rezoning. So the first one is on Phillip Hill. This one's kind of interesting because it's over 26 acres, so very large lot of land there they're looking at. And this one's interesting on the kind of eastern side of Raleigh, I believe in annexation as well, but they'd have to complete a stream study along with, I think it's 400 feet of the parcel land, of the parcel that is adjacent to that stream. So they want to understand the impacts to the stream that's next to, since it's such a large, that one is they're kind of looking at some of those, if there's a kind of existing imperviousness, but just the size of the lot is quite unique compared to the smaller ones we were discussing. The final one, so that was kind of for public hearing. The final one, the public hearing section, is kind of an interesting one because they're, as you know, the city is looking at opportunities for affordable housing, and they're kind of specifically looking at areas that the city already owns, looking at areas that they can fill these affordable housing areas on. This one's actually just south of, relatively just south of downtown on Summit Avenue, so kind of at the edge of this park there. So it's currently, I believe, existing right next to an existing greenway. So on the edge of it, it's in close to the being flood zone there. So, looking at opportunities for that. I think, as far as just being general citizens, it's very large log land. They would be able to develop on all of it. But it's 44 acres they're looking at. So it's a big area that they're evaluating, hearing public comments about that. So with that rezoning, kind of an interesting area looking for opportunities, and would definitely change everything that was to take place. So very early stages looking at public comment. So if anyone has any questions, happy to try to answer, pass it to them. They're all more informed. Happy to develop it.
Thank you for the information.
Yeah, sure.
A lot going on.
Yeah.
Wayne, stormwater updates?
Yes, thank you. So first, on behalf of Commissioner Talavera, I'd like to announce that she has expressed her desire to not continue after her term is up in February. So she has graciously agreed to continue attending until she's formally replaced, which we appreciate. The vacancy will be announced on the January 17th City Council meeting coming up. But certainly if anyone knows of folks who are interested in assuming that role, let them know. And on the city's website, there is a nomination form that you can fill out. Anyone who's interested, express your desire to join SPEC. And the next updates, I have several updates from the stormwater team. The first one, Jaleesa White, who's with us today, was recently promoted as Senior Engineering Specialist in the Drainage Assistance Program. She started working with Raleigh in 2018 in the Development Services Department, where she managed the permitting process from intake to final review. Then in 2021, she joined the stormwater team as an engineering specialist with drainage assistance. And so she's being promoted within that same team. She has a BA in Parks and Recreation, Sports Leadership, and Tourism Management from UNC Wilmington. And she's recently received her master's degree in Business Administration with a concentration in project management from Southern New Hampshire University. So congratulations to Lisa. Another one we have is Brian Nicole, and Brian, I think, is here too. Oh, nope, I thought Brian had the mask on in there. Sorry, you have the same kind of glasses you do. My apologies. Brian's been a stormwater inspector with the city of Raleigh since 2017, conducting construction inspections for reviewed plans. Prior experience includes stormwater site inspection for a private company and worked as a field research and scientist for South Carolina Department of Natural Resources. Brian has a bachelor's degree in biology and a master's degree in environmental studies, where his research was stormwater related. So glad to have Brian promoted and assuming a new role in the plan review side, whereas that inspections experience, I think, will be very helpful. We have a new to stormwater, but not the city. Donnell Perry has joined the stormwater plan review team as a senior engineering specialist. Danelle has worked for the city since 2004, including 7 years with development services and planning and development, where his experience as a permitting advocate will give him lots of helpful knowledge in terms of permitting processes and software. He's also spent time with the customer service center and has field inspection experience as a right-of-way compliance officer. So all that experience will be very helpful to us in the stormwater program. Welcome to Donnell. And lastly, but not least, Cameron Walkart has been promoted from a stormwater inspector to a stormwater inspections coordinator for the single family inspections team. Cameron started working for the city about 3.5 years ago. And over that time in the single family team has really advanced in his expertise, become proficient handling complaints, communicating with citizens and addressing difficult situations. Cameron has a BS in environmental technology and management and 5 years of professional experience prior to his time with the city. So congratulations to Cameron on promotion to a new role as well. Next up, high priority topics. In response to the commission's request for a leaf update, leaf pickup status update, we've asked Kevin Cowboy Moore, who's supervisor with Transportation Field Services, to come give us a brief update of where we stand on leaf collection. Cowboy, all yours.
This is transportation business, does the leaf collection. We started November 14th. We put a schedule out in September, October, to try to make it around the city 2 times. We have 54 staff members that collect leaves, doing 13 out of stormwater, 29 out of the rest of transportation, and we have 12 temporary people and 3 more coming on in the next week or 2. We have 12 dump trucks and trailers that go out, flatbeds that pick up leaves, and 7 automated. And here's a video of a leaf pile. Took 11 days to make this leaf pile, and it has 304 loads, leaves dumped in it. That was in 2 zones, the northeast side of Raleigh.
So this is one of 6 sites.
One of
like
6
this, right?
sites, yes, ma'am.
Yep.
And then we'll haul, these are temporary dump sites, and we'll haul them to, right now, Walls Recycling have to pay to dump them there. This is a leaf pile that it probably takes real time, about 15 to 20 minutes to pick up this pile of leaves. But that's the walk behind trucks with 3 guys on it that drives all over the city of Raleigh. All right. This is our technology that we're using this year, a quick capture map. Each driver has it. Every time they're pulling leaves, they hit a button, shows where they collect the leaves at. When they leave to go take a load to the dump site, they hit a button so we can get a hot map of where most of the leaves are getting picked up at. And it gives us the data. So and they can take pictures if something is obstructing the pile, like a car, sticks in the leaves or whatever. So when people call and say, hey, you didn't pick my leaves up, we can go back and say, there was a car parked in there at this time, this day. Year to date to yesterday's numbers, last year at this time, we'd been in 10 zones, picked up 1,651 loads at about 3,000 cubic yards. This year, we're on schedule. All the leaves fell early this year. We've only been in 7 zones, picked up 1,455 loads at 30,000 cubic yards. So we're about at the same cubic yards and loads, been in less zones. Any questions? Yes, sir.
I have questions. I'm intrigued. How many zones total in the city?
12.
12, okay.
Well, and each zone has, I think, the least amount of maps. We broke the zones up into different maps. We have 4 field supervisors with 5 trucks apiece, and they put them in the zone, in the map. And there's about, the least amount is 8 maps in a zone. The most is 14 to go through one zone. And there's 12 different zones.
And, so after you make these 6, you drop in these 6 temporary sites, how much longer, I mean, how long does this program run? From November 1st to?
So we started November the 14th this year, and we started about the same time every year, runs to about the end of March. I know last year we started hauling off from these temporary dump sites during leaf season. So when we was done with picking up leaves, the temporary sites were moved.
So the 50 plus employees are kind of engaged for that period of
Yes,
time? Okay.
Yes, sir.
And then why, and last question, why not going to the yard waste center, the city of Raleigh, why is it going to Walls Recycling?
They are not allowed to take any leaves because they're cleaning up from, they can't accept all the leaves. We used to dump there all the time. So they've got it, their management or something over the past years, they've had to clean up for EPA purposes.
They're in a regulatory situation there.
Yes, sir. Yeah, got it.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I just have a few questions. I know you have, maybe it's your department or, sorry, department as well, place those large, kind of the size of a trash can before the leaf collection. Have you seen that, help with some of the leaf collection, or how has that impacted the transition, or what kind of feedback have you gotten from the community or your team?
Yeah, solid waste actually put them out.
Oh,
Solid waste picked them up. Really and truly, we can't tell the difference. I know people's been saying they put them in there, but some of the piles that we pick up won't fit in that bin. So some in the smaller areas that don't have many trees and stuff, it has helped a little bit. But our automated run through them areas pretty quick.
yeah.
So,
And as far as, when you're looking at that, when I was from an, example, a good example, just the street cleanup where they have the kind of vacuum thing that kind of goes around, obviously a very manual process. A lot of people of staff be involved in that one. How often do you see, just from a stormwater perspective, it actually being on the property side versus the street side? Just, like that, kind of how to get the stormwater issue, if there's, blocking the way, if there are these large storms, are there notifications that go out about how to properly do that, or what kind of communication?
yes, ma'am, there is, we do put out literature, through Rob Murray, through Stormwater puts it out, through mailing and all of that. But it says put it behind the curb, not in the street, but we do not have anybody that enforces putting them in the street and not putting them in the street. So we tell everybody not to. If we see somebody doing it, we'll try to explain, but nobody wants to leave it on the grass. And it's in the street everywhere. Nobody wants, some people do, but that's like a tip to citizens.
I'm thinking, citizens versus, thinking about neighbors or, have help with their yards and hire that. Is that notification going out to lawn services
Yes, ma'am.
providers as well?
Yes, ma'am. It does go out to them, and if we see it, we do not collect them because we don't, landscapers, we're not supposed to collect landscapers stuff. I know a lot of houses do. If we see it in progress, we don't collect it. We let them know that they're getting paid to haul it off. So, but we do pick up a lot of landscapers have been calling this year because we are kind of enforcing that more. And it is put out in the notification for how to do leaves and stuff.
Thanks for all the your team does, but it's a huge effort, and there were, to see in my own neighborhood, a ton of leaves. So, thank you for all that you're doing.
Can you just go back a little bit, give me a touch of the history of that? It's a stormwater, it's a reason we do this for stormwater, right? I mean, Okay, so I'm just making sure.
Trying
We're
to,
trying to keep the leaves out of the system?
yes, sir.
Okay.
Try to keep the nitrogen out of the creeks and all that. And last year we picked up 78,000 cubic yards of leaves.
Most of them are in the street, then.
Most of them are in the street.
That's what we're trying to keep them out of the street.
Yes, sir.
Most of them are in the street through the whole season.
Yes, sir. And we try to put it out to when to put them out, but it's like last year the leaves fell 1st of December, and this year they fell 1st of November. So when you put the schedule out, you're a month ahead and nothing's failing.
Thank you.
Enjoy the time lapse.
Yes, sir.
I guess a comment on the benefits. I would say it's in part a stormwater issue. It's also in part an aesthetics issue, just frankly. You could make an argument that the way it's done, the stormwater effects might not be better by pulling them out into the curb, which is from a practical standpoint, what happens, right? And that's reflected in the way the costs of the program are shared. The stormwater program only covers part of the program.
Yes.
And Cowboy noted that. I think the 13 staff were stormwater staff, the others were transportation staff. And we similarly share costs of the pickup equipment between stormwater and transportation field services. So, it's partially stormwater, but it's partially aesthetics, I think, too. And just a service to the community of disposing of, the leaves from their farm.
From a historical perspective, Raleigh's collected leaves long before stormwater existed. It was paid for out of the general funds,
Okay, good point.
but a lot of communities recognized there was a stormwater benefit. And so a lot of communities started paying for that leaf collection through the stormwater utility fee. Originally, it was a separate program.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And I guess one other just quick update, we've been giving periodic updates on our equity program and plan implementation. We do have the consultant on board, have a kickoff meeting next week for our operational equity scope of work, and we'll continue to give you updates on that. And then I would anticipate a future presentation back to the commission once we get into that project far enough that we'll be able to show some progress and some ideas. Just a quick reminder, a few of the items they're looking at, they're going to help us look at how we do our prioritization ranking for our capital improvements projects, implementation of the equity framework that was developed for the watershed studies. Help us, we saw some presentations on the community outreach engagement. We're continuing to work on that, and we'll get input from the consultant on how we can improve that program as well as other internal, just operational issues, personnel issues and hiring and so forth. So we'll keep giving you updates on that. And then lastly, no notices prior to construction to announce at this time.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Stephen, I believe you're going to talk to us about Raleigh Rainwater Rewards Project. Quarterly update.
Thank you. It's fine. All right. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to present. We have 4 petitioners today. One of these projects is actually in-house too, and Richard and their landscaper are here. So when I get to them, I'll present, and then Noah mentioned you wanted to have a word. So after that, I'll just guide you up, Noah. But I'll get right to it right away. Like I said, we have 4 petitioners today, and Rainwater Boards is well funded to receive this. So the first one, excuse me. First one is at 3312 Hampton Roads. This is in House Creek in the 75% zone, and it is a series of 3 cisterns a total of 4,500 gallons. This is a new build construction, so as you can see, it's still being designed. The cisterns are located in the back of the property, and you're going to have rooftop and patio draining to a series of 3 inline cisterns. This is the site plan. As you can see, everything but the red shows the drainage area into which cistern it's going into. Now, granted, these are all 3 in line and they level each other out. So very large drainage area. The red area is drainage that will bypass and go to the side and off the property. This is a picture of the filter system that's located right at the inlet of the tanks. Here's the breakdown for the costs. As you can see, the total is roughly around $40,000. And that city contribution is around $30,000. The numbers work out pretty nice. This is the pollutant reduction calculations that we performed. So as you can see, total nitrogen is roughly 1.04 pounds. Total suspended solids is 20.1 pounds. And the costs relative to the total acceptable costs of this program are indicated on the right here. And I'll have your comparison next slide so you can see it compared to other projects. So these are not all of the underground cisterns, but as you can see, the total cost in this column, you'll see more of that comparison price and the average of all the projects for underground cisterns. So it's right in the middle. Here's your typical, as you've seen this slide before in the past, is the maintenance requirements that we give out for that 10-year maintenance period. And Graham, I know this is common, if you'd like me to have approval for all 4 at the end, let me know, or we can approve them individually.
Reverend Taylor likes to combine them together, but yeah, since we have some individuals here with separate projects, I'd say let's just vote or deny each individual project.
Well, are there any questions first before you decide to vote for Hampton Roads?
What's the life of the project you're estimating?
So, yeah, so we calculated based off a 10-year maintenance period. After that, it depends on what the homeowner would like to do, if they maintain it or they destroy it. I highly doubt that they would destroy their cisterns, but we don't calculate that pollutant removal after that period because we don't, that legal agreement that we insure expires. But during that 10-year, we will check in and
What are the anticipated uses for the cistern water on this project?
it is just a drainage control and treatment.
What you showed was the filter device?
Yeah, that's just,
It's gonna be a concrete or?
yeah, it's all, I believe it's fiberglass tanks. But yeah, that's just the filter prior to going in. It's part of our maintenance efforts that they need to not only maintain and regulate, but also have them. And that was one of the questions we were going back and forth is where are you putting this filter? Because there could have been several inline locations and they decided to do it at the inlet of the tank. And just back and forth, they provided that information. So I relayed that to you.
Sorry, they're not reusing the water?
They are not. No, it's all passive draw. Well, they are collecting some, I apologize. Yes, they are collecting some. It's not like half the portion. It is, I believe, around 1,000 or 1,300 gallons. But it would be for landscaping, and that's just not tied into anything.
Is it sized for the 1 inch or are they getting the size of the double?
Yes, it is sized for a minimum of 1 inch, and I believe it goes beyond that.
It is sized currently.
Yeah.
With that pricing, it's sized.
For larger. but the 1 inch is passive dry. And I believe they even have their, I actually snipped it, but on this site plan, they have their own calculations on the side that show. Any other questions?
I am just missing this. So I guess typically when we're looking at some of these, this one, the water is draining from the roof, so that's the kind of a patio area. It seems to be, and it's not being used, but it's just storage or partially being used. The rest will just go straight later on or just be stored there temporarily until it kind of just slowing down the flow pretty much is the main benefit.
Well, yeah, and it's also treatment based off the passive drawdown. So that first 1 inch, and this is all tied into that pollutant removal calculation that we have.
Yeah.
So that first 1 inch is sized accordingly. And so that tank needs to be a minimum of that size of 1 inch, calculating that impervious drainage. And so, and then that first 1 inch will passively draw down within 72 hours in a vegetated zone, slow drawing. And that's the treatment, the pollutant removal process.
Understood.
And then it is sized additionally past that for whatever beneficial use they'd like to use it as.
I mean, I think it meets the criteria. It was interesting in some of what we're hearing, but at least it's in the mid sweet spot of kind of what your criteria
Absolutely.
are. I can support it.
Yeah.
Motion to approve or deny.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, with second. And for David, okay, all in favor? Okay, all right, opposition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our second is located on East Hargett Street, 1207 East Hargett Street. It's located in Walnut Creek. It's right on the edge of Pigeon House Branch, and so it's in the 75% zone. This is a series of actually 2 rain gardens, one in the back and one in the front, for 140 square feet total. So he's got a small shed in the back, which will drain to one small rain garden, and then part of his house will drain to the front. It's located on this flat area, on the hillside, but on the flat area. So these drawings are not quite as nice as the other, but they're trying to relay the site plan for you. So you have the garage over here that will drain to a small rain garden, and the rooftop will drain to this rain garden in the front. These are his handwritten drawings with the plat map during his calculations, so we can verify. Here's cost breakdown according to the landscaper. Here's a pollutant breakdown. It's a smaller size compared to the last petition. So you're gonna have quite a bit lower nitrogen removal rate in TSS. And relative to the total cost of the project, you'll see here are those comparisons. So here's a comparison chart that I have for rain gardens. The average is roughly around 30,000, or it is 31,000. This is on the higher end of that. Here's our maintenance requirements that we have. This will be a 10-year maintenance requirement, as all of them will be. Is there any questions with this?
It's pretty close to the house. Is there like, what's the distance?
Yeah, so that was an issue that I brought up right away. Sorry, it's not gonna actually do a whole lot. So I asked him to be at least 10 feet away from that foot, or the footing of his house. And we discussed it too, because that slope and the natural pathway of drainage is going to pool inside that rain garden, but it's going to naturally flow away from the house.
Is this one, so everything's everything is going, trading down, there's no addition, I mean, he's done all the tests on the property, but.
Yeah, he's done percolation tests, and it looks good on both the rain gardens in the back and the front. And I think a lot of that is because the house is sitting on quite a bit of fill. But yeah, it will percolate inside the rain garden footprint itself. And there is an overflow device past that 1-inch rain. And that,
It seems like one of those that a couple of years ago was under the $5,000 threshold.
yeah. Yeah, and last time when I was here, we dealt with this too. This particular contractor, when we asked the same questions, his response was that the costs are increasing for not only materials, but labor as well, so. And also it is relative, I do find, in some cases, at least recently in my experience, sometimes we have smaller rain gardens, you get that lower removal rate, and yet the cost to mobilize and to bring that equipment in is high. So sometimes I tend to find them a little higher in that comparison versus the flume removal. But it is underneath our cap. I believe that the number is 5,500 roughly, at the cap of 7,000. So.
Questions? Should anyone make a motion?
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
All right. Thank you. The next one is 818 Woodburn Road. As mentioned, the homeowners are here. This one is located in Pigeon House Branch, so we're in that 90% reimbursement zone. This is a series of two components to this project. They have some impervious surface that they are removing, and then there is going to be a series of two rain gardens in the footprint of that impervious surface removal. So I try to break down these costs and I try to work with you with that comparison. But keep in mind, it's impervious surface removal that has its own calculations and the rain garden. So this is roughly this is the footprint of the impervious surface removal. You can see there's an existing drain that will stay. So they're going to remove this and add the two rain gardens in here, including also a pathway and some impervious pathway. And that is taken out of this calculation. If that makes sense. So they're removing the concrete, but there's going to put some walkways through it and some landscape features. So we're not including that in any sort of pollutant calculation. Here's an overall design provided by the landscaper to calculate the drainage area. So as you can see, there's the two rain gardens. Here's the pathways. And then all overflow will go into that inlet, which exits downstream from their property. Here's the pollutant removal rates and also the comparisons. So I've broken down the costs. It's actually hard to see on this. These are highlighted a little green. These are the impervious surface removal costs. And then everything below here is the rain garden cost. Now I've compared both separately, and you'll see in the next two charts. And also I have the total costs as a relative to comparison. But this project will cost almost $14,900. As you saw in the last slide, here's the rain garden maintenance requirements. Let's get through here. All right, so here is the rain garden comparison. So once again, average is around 31,000. This came in at 20,000. And then here's the impervious surface removal cost. So the average is 12,000. This came in 19,000. Now the total cost for both is, as mentioned, is favorable, or on the it's favorable. So I believe. It is 19,000. So if you were to look at this, say rain gardens, because in the end it is becoming a rain garden, we're still located right around that same area, right, right below the average for total cost of both impervious surface and the rain.
You better go back to the total cost then. That's,
This,
have this landscaper pricey last job.
With-
This guy seems to be a lot more important. The guy on the last job.
well, on that segue, I'd be happy to actually bring him up since he's.
I'm just saying, need three numbers. Nah, yeah, no questions, but yeah, you guys would like.
Yeah, I'll let him present and then I'll open for any more questions.
Okay.
I don't know too much, just thanks for hearing us out on the project. We're pretty excited. We've done, I think, one or two projects with rainwater awards before, but this is the biggest one we've done and pretty exciting from a removal concrete standpoint. Impact to the Pigeon House watershed, particularly high up in the watershed. So, yeah, happy to answer any questions and thanks for your time.
Are there any questions?
See anything? And appreciate you being here. Thank you for your time and your interest. Anybody have any questions or a motion?
Vote to approve.
Second. Call them. All in favor? All opposition? Thank you. Thank you, guys.
I'm gonna say thank you.
Figured you might. Thank you for being here.
Sometimes we have a swimming pool in the backyard, you know, about the concrete stuff. Not what we put in.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Looks like you're gonna have a great deal.
Yeah, it's nice to put a face to the name too. All right, the last one is 2305 Ridge Road. It's actually just right up the street from the first presentation that I did. It's located in House Creek. This is in, once again, the 75% zone. And this is a large 600 square foot rain garden located in the back of the house. This is roughly the location of the rain garden. This is actually looking off their deck. Here's a site plan look. So they're going to be diverting their rooftop to the back. You can kind of see in the top right is the rough location of that future rain garden, if approved. Because of the size, this has a fairly large pollutant removal rate. As you can see, it's about 4 pounds and 20 pounds, so very similar to the first one too. And here's a comparison charts. Here's the estimated project costs and the breakdown. Here's this comparison. So as you can see, once again, that average about 31,000 for rain gardens. This is right below the average. Maintenance requirements. Any questions on 2305 Ridge Road?
Questions? So anybody want to make a motion?
Motion approved.
Colvin? All in favor? Opposition? Thank you.
All right, well, fantastic. Well, thank you for the opportunity to present once again, and I'll see you potentially in 3 months. If not.
Or will the quarterly report?
I'll take any questions. The quarterly report, thank you much. The quarterly report in the stack, agenda backup items, you'll see a summarizing projects approved and projects reimbursed since the last time we presented. You'll also see our very long list of our rapidly growing list of projects in table form, sorted by our nitrogen metric, separated by project type. So happy to answer any questions either now or after the meeting, or via email.
Anybody have any questions? Anybody dive into the details there? Again, I'm sorry, I didn't. Appreciate the information. All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you. All right, next item, USGS role in urban hydrology and data science. Charlie Stillwell, PhD, speak to us.
If I could just make a kind of a quick opening comment before Dr. Stillwell all starts. We really appreciate the partnership that USGS has with us. It goes back many years now in terms of all the stream gauging, rain gauging. Mark's aware. It goes back to his tenure with the city, before your tenure. So been an excellent partnership. A key part is Dr. Stillwell will mention, a key part of our flood early warning system is really the backbone of the data collection. So thank you for coming and speaking with us.
Yeah, thanks, Wayne. I appreciate the invite. Just to tell you more about the USGS and myself. So just a little background on me. I was born in Asheville, moved around a bit. Undergrad was at Drexel University in Philadelphia. And then I moved to Raleigh for grad school. I did my PhD with Dr. Bill Hunt at NC State. And the title of my dissertation was Improved Procedures and Metrics for the Design and Evaluation of Low Impact Development Projects. So all about green stormwater infrastructure, and that's kind of my wheelhouse. And I've been at the U.S. Geological Survey since 2018. So before I get into the USGS, I actually was invited to give a presentation on this project a few years ago, right before COVID, to this group, and then it kind of fell off. There were some more important things at the time, but my project at NC State was to monitor a site that some folks in this room are probably familiar with, Lifetime Fitness, which is just at it's off of Falls and News Road right near 540. I believe it was one of the first, if not the first, big rezoning case within the Falls Lake Watershed Overlay District. So Lifetime Fitness really wanted this parcel for their gym, but it was zoned for low density residential. And to get approval from the planning committee, basically they needed to prove that they could go above and beyond their stormwater management, and then have a third party monitor and evaluate how well it was working. And that ended up being my project at NC State. So here's just a little diagram of what was going on at the site. It just doesn't work on the screen, huh? All the parking lot and the roof and the pool area. I wonder if this will work. You see my cursor right there?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So all the parking lot and roofs and the pool deck all either drain to these biofilters, which are the first level of the treatment train. It then goes into this constructed wetlands and into this giant wet pond. It's hard to appreciate the scale here. I should have added a photo, but it's sized to hold like the 8-inch storm or something gargantuan. And long story short, it ended up working according to our regulations. Here's the dashed lines of the basically the pounds per acre that were allowed to be exported from the site. The main bar to look at is this pink one. This is after construction. The total nitrogen and total phosphorus exports were below those thresholds, so it worked. But it's also a little weird because it wasn't really a super replicable design. Not every site has a room for a 1 acre wet pond on site to hold. I think it was like 10 or 15 feet deep. It's something crazy. So yes, it can be done. You can reduce your nutrient levels, even if it's a high density, kind of really high impervious site. But also it takes a lot of effort to do so. So that was a lot of what I was monitoring in a few years at NC State. Another interesting finding from this was the green bar versus the red bar.
The red is pre-construction, the pervious areas, and the green is post-construction from just the pervious areas. So there are less pervious areas, but there's actually more nutrient export per square foot. We tend to think about pervious areas, we kind of ignore them a little bit, especially in the regulatory world. But all that construction was compacting those ground, compacting the soils, so there's a lot more runoff, which caused a lot more nutrient export from the pervious areas, which is kind of an interesting and unexpected finding from the study. Anyways, that's not really related to what I'm supposed to be talking about, but I thought you might find it interesting. So I work at the U.S. Geological Survey now, and we are a federal agency in the Department of the Interior. So that's like the same as Fish and Wildlife Service, the Parks Department, National Park Service, all those things. Our mission statement is here. We monitor, assess, and conduct targeted science research so that policymakers and the public have the understanding they need to enhance preparedness, response, and resilience. It's very buzzword laden, but essentially we do earth science. NASA's looking up into outer space, USGS, Geological Survey, we're doing earth sciences. EPA is doing regulations. So we're broken into these 5 units. I'm in this last one, the Water Resources Group. And in all of those different units, we have these cross-cutting themes that you can see some examples of across the bottom. So, we're always thinking about climate and land use change. We're thinking about environmental health and all these sorts of different things you might know from all of our maps and that sort of stuff. Zooming in a bit more to our center, it's the South Atlantic Water Science Center. All these units are broken down into kind of regional areas, and we are in the South Atlantic region. The reason this is done is because some, of the units of the government have, kind of top-down policies. Here's what our Congress wants us to work on. But our mission is more locally focused. We partner with local and regional stakeholders and partners and work on projects that are relevant to folks in the states of North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. The bluish, darker dots are like the headquarters offices in each state. We also have field offices because we collect data anywhere in the footprint of the state. So even if, someone all the way in the most southwest corner of Georgia wants a stream gauge there, then we are required to collect it. So that's why we have to have these field stations all scattered throughout the area, because that's all of our purview, and we've got to be able to monitor and keep those sites online as quickly as possible. If you're interested in following us and learning more about the type of work we do, there's our Twitter and Facebook handles. And I was hoping to show you some of the data we collect. Our first and foremost role is to collect foundational data. And it looks like this will work. That's great. So this is just what we call our National Water Dashboard, and this is a map. Hopefully you all can see it. It basically just shows all of the places that we collect data in our region. So the default that shows up is stream flow. So these are all the streams that we have gauges on where we're measuring discharge amounts in real time, recorded in 15-minute increments, available online. So that's very cool. I'm going to turn that one off and turn on surface water. So that's station types. And I'm going to zoom in to Raleigh. Show you what we got going on here. See, as we get a little closer, there's a number of different dots in our Raleigh area. You can kind of follow Crabtree Creek, starting at Umstead Park, or moving downstream. This is all on Crabtree Creek. We have one on the Trib here. This is called Marsh Creek. And you can see a similar pattern starting towards the top of Walnut Creek and moving downstream. We actually have a lake station in Lake Johnson that reports surface level elevations there, and you keep going downstream. So these are all the places where we're reporting real-time or near real-time water data that then the city uses. Let's see, I'm going to show another one real quick. For precipitation, this is another type of data we collect and report in near real time. Here's the network of precipitation gauges that are across the city of Raleigh's area. the city of Raleigh uses this data a lot, but really this is all available to the public. Anyone, this is, not an internal website, so anyone can click on any page. You can see the data is slow to load, apparently, but there's the precipitation data from the last 7 days at this specific site. You can download it and learn more about it, all sorts of stuff for the public. All right, anyways, let's go back to my slide here. So all of that data is collected by hydrologic technicians. This is someone collecting a discharge measurement. So I don't know, you might, depending on what your degree was, you might remember maybe learning a little bit about discharge measurements where someone's standing on one edge of the stream, measuring how fast the water's going, step to the side, measure how fast it's going here. Combining all the velocity of water and the depth of water tells you how much water is flowing across the entire channel in that moment. So we collect a lot of readings like this, and then we can translate that data into real time because we can measure the depth of water, and that's just reported. It goes, shoots into a satellite or something and goes into a database. I don't know how any of that works, but that's how we collect our data. Here's another example of our hydrologic technicians. Here they're collecting water quality information. So they're collecting samples, again, weighted. You go across the stream, collect a little bit on the left, a little bit on the right, a little bit in the middle, see how that changes across the channel. And that helps us understand our baseline water quality conditions. So it all kind of comes down to this foundational data. All of this data is the foundation for something greater. All the hydrologic technicians are installing, operating, and maintaining all of these stations. They require a lot of attention to make sure our data is high quality. They also inspect, review, and process all the data. Basically, every morning, their first task is to go online and make sure their data looks like they're expecting it to look like. If a sensor goes down, they know it that morning and then go out and correct that information, go out in the field and fix the equipment or whatever they need to do. And I keep mentioning that foundational data as a segue into a big project that the city is doing right now that uses that foundational data, which is the flood early warning system. So these dots, the yellow dots, are where the flood early warning, I guess that's where the signs are located, or maybe that's actually where the gauges are, but you can see how similar this was when I was pointing out the stations following along Walnut Creek in the south and Crabtree Creek in the north. So the USGS data is put into this flood early warning system. I think it's Feats and Associates or something. They then process the data to provide these real-time flood alerts, and that's what activates the signs and all that sort of stuff. So that's really cool. We do our part to make that possible and then make that data available to all sorts of others who want to use that data, which we find very exciting. Another use of our foundational data is for a project called the Triangle Area Water Supply Monitoring Project. This is relevant to us who live in Raleigh, but there's a lot of partners on this, including Town of Cary, City of Durham, all sorts of counties that all use basically the water from Falls Lake and Jordan Lake. This project has been going on for probably about 30 years now. And we have all sorts of water quality data and stream flow data to inform what is going into our reservoirs and how is that changing over time. So this is just one example from one report that we've published. All the upward pointing red arrows mean they've detected a positive upward trend in, I think this is for specific conductance, which is basically like, it's kind of a surrogate for what stuff is in the water that is conducted by an electric current. So salts and ions and stuff like that. So it's a good surrogate for certain types of pollutants. You can see that in some of these areas we're detecting in streams and even in the lakes that we've noticed over the last 30 years that some of these things are going up. This is then used by the water supply folks who are operating the dams and using that water, the drinking water folks. So that's the sort of data that we can provide and is used. And I'm going to highlight a few specific projects that we're doing in this area. with the city of Raleigh as well. These are kind of a little bit more special investigations that are targeted for specific questions that like the city of Raleigh has. This is the Raleigh Stream Bank Erosion Project. And the goal, probably bigger than this project, but the overall goal is to try to pinpoint and prioritize streams all throughout Raleigh that are experiencing severe erosion, and then kind of rank those by how can we choose to restore which streams and protect which streams. Stream bank erosion can be bad for water quality reasons, and if you're eroding towards a greenway or a sewer or a road, that could be a real safety hazard. So there's a need to identify where these streams are eroding and how quickly they're eroding, what danger they may pose. So we are testing out a new way to detect where erosion is occurring using LiDAR data. LiDAR, do you guys know what LiDAR data is? Everyone? No? Anyone? I'll explain. So LiDAR data is like, there's this plane that flies over and it shoots out something. It's like radar, but it's light. So it shoots down a pulse of light and it bounces back up. And based on how long it takes to bounce back up, you can tell how far away it was. So then from that information, you can kind of build a surface of the earth and understand the elevation. So we have LiDAR from like a few years, like 2015, and then new LiDAR in 2022. We can see how the elevation may have changed between those 7 years. And that's a way maybe to detect if a stream has moved in those 7 years, or it's got deeper or something like that. And we're using that information paired with like some ground truth. We went out into the field, looked at real data sites, and are comparing those data sets. So for instance, here's Rocky Branch, right upstream of Pullman Park is the top left photo. From the LiDAR, red is bad and not red is kind of good. So that's a recently restored stream. You can see its photo just below. That's a project that Barbara Dahl worked on at NC State a number of years ago. And that is not an incised stream. And our data from the LiDAR is showing that it's not incised. So that was an agreement. Just further downstream, so this is also Rocky Branch, probably half a mile downstream or maybe even less. It kind of crosses into Pullman Park and then goes under Western. And this area is just past that, where you can see all this red. And the associated picture right below that, you can see how incised that stream is right there. I think that's probably about a 10-foot high stream bank right there. So a lot of that, whenever that water is flowing past this and you have a high flow event, all the sediment from this bank is, scouring away and then contributing to potential downstream issues and eating away land on Dorothea Dix Park. So that's just I chose a really handy reach where our data looks really good. We're still kind of teasing out where is it looking really well, where is it not looking well, and why is that happening? And that's really a really cool study that we're working on. It's ongoing right now, and hopefully we'll be able to, I think maybe a year or so from now, Chrissy Hopkins, who's the project manager, might come back and tell you more details about this project, I'm hoping.
Your work exclusively with LiDAR, and I'm asking because I've run along that section creek and the whole stream now has got white flags all along it. I'm assuming that's something that Dorothea Dix planning, but I'm wondering if it's your project as well.
No, we haven't done any flagging. I know they're planning to do some, I think they already have a stream restoration design. I don't know if this is this exact area that I've pinpointed here, but I think someone has plans to do some stream restoration along that reach of the Rocky Branch there. I'm just going to go through a few other example projects. This one's not specifically with the city of Raleigh. It's actually with Wake County, but of course relevant since we're here. This is a study my colleague Dominic has been working on. It's to understand groundwater and then model what the future for groundwater might be. So he first basically collected all the groundwater data at these different sites in the yellow dots on the right to understand how deep the water tables are. He measured the draw rates of these different wells, like how much water can be drawn from the wells at a maximum rate, and kind of some other tests to understand the supplies in the different areas across the county. There's kind of a geologic gradient where you move into kind of a different geologic zone in the east than the west. So the groundwater dynamics are different. And then build like a model called a water balance model, where when it rains, how much water, in the left image, how much water in this stream is water going into the stream, or how much water is, going from the stream down into the earth. If it falls over here, is the rain going to soak into the deep groundwater? Is it going to go along this shallow path? And he's trying to understand all those different dynamics for future planning purposes. A lot of folks outside the city limits use, private wells for their water supply. So understanding how, plug in what we think rainfall patterns might be 50 years from now. Or is the groundwater going to respond as it is now, or is it going to be changing in the future? So that's another kind of cool project. I'm not a groundwater hydrologist, so don't ask me any questions on that one, please. And then lastly is a really cool project that I'm excited to be starting up in a few months here, hopefully, specifically in the Walnut Creek watershed. So that's starts in Cary, but covers all of South Raleigh. And I've petitioned for Walnut Creek to join the Urban Waters Federal Partnership, which is a kind of consortium of these 15 different federal agencies. USGS is below DOI, which is the Buffalo guy there. But, USDA, the Forest Service is there, Army Corps of Engineers, NOAA, FEMA, all sorts of these federal agencies basically pool resources and expertise in an effort to identify neighborhoods that are underserved and support them with our, kind of hydrologic information, but also some funding sources. And the Walnut Creek area, especially in southeast Raleigh, is prone to flooding a lot of the time. I think probably the folks in this room are familiar with the Rose Lane drainage study. That's one of the neighborhoods in particular that we've had some interactions with and are trying to basically think of ways to support this group. So as a part of that, we are going to be joining this Urban Waters Federal Partnership. I'll be the main federal representative for the watershed, but really it's a community-led effort. We're hiring a community ambassador that's more of a community organizer rather than a scientist sort of talking head person. And they're actually boots on the ground, working with residents and business owners in the watershed to try to figure out what are the ways that they think we should be able to restore Walnut Creek and address some of these environmental justice issues that they're experiencing. This is kind of just a clip to recognize that a lot of the federal agencies are trying to think more about environmental justice. I can see that at the city as well, because Wayne, you mentioned the diversity person that's being brought on board, or whatever that was exactly. So yeah, we're thinking about that as well. I'm really excited to get that started in the near future. So that's just like a example of all the kind of USGS capabilities, how we work with the city of Raleigh, how we hope to continue working with the city. I think I've left plenty of time for questions if you have any, but really this is just more informative to let you know who we are and how a lot of the projects and funds that the city of Raleigh devotes to stormwater projects are being used, and how we try to support those. So thanks for your time.
Thank you for your time. If anybody has any questions, why?
Just want to say thanks for all the stuff you guys do. We use all your data. I use it personally all the time. And I don't back in around the lifetime fitness.
Oh, yeah.
That was a biggie. So
Yeah.
really appreciate you showing the results of that, because there's a lot of anxiety among the staff and the city council and others about allowing something of that magnitude in the city's water supply watershed, allowing constructive stormwater control instead of natural stormwater control. That was the first thing, because Raleigh's policy has always been low development, keep it simple, keep the pollution out of the watershed. And that was a big change. It looks like it came out all right, but there's a lot of anxiety on that project.
Yeah, that was actually, I'll go back to that. Just kind of interesting for those who are less familiar with the project. The watershed boundary is right about here, at least before construction. So they actually have like a backup redundant solution where water that's in the pond can be pumped out underground and then spits out in the sewer, which is right under Falls of Noose Road, which is outside of the watershed. So it's like the backup solution is some interbasin transfer, which I was interested in. I was a new enough student that I was unaware of all the political implications of that project, which I think I'm happy with. Because it was a lot of, like you said, a lot of anxiety at the city level, but I was just there to collect data and make some pretty plots. So yeah, glad I could help.
If I can just make a kind of a contextual comment too, that we're very excited about the LiDAR stream bank erosion project. That's going to fit very well in with a number of other initiatives that we're doing. Dr. Stillwell mentioned the field work, which we're going to continue to do. Our watershed planning work is going to be used along with that. And as I think SMAC is aware, we're ramping up our stream restoration program. So that work will help inform priorities for where we want to look to focus our continued stream restoration projects and priorities as well. So that work really fits well within a lot of the work that we're doing. NC State's a partner helping with the field work with that project as well. So thank you again to USGS, and thanks for Dr. Stillwell coming in and give us it's a real high level overview of lots of the things that we're involved together with, but really exciting work.
Yeah, this is my first time coming. It was kind of fun watching all the things just before me, the Raleigh reports. That was a lot of fun. I want to come again. Thanks.
Feel free to join us anytime. We appreciate your presentation. All right, I believe next, and possibly last, is presentation from Zachary Poole about Raleigh's illicit discharge detection and elimination program.
Good afternoon, Zachary Poole. Appreciate your time allowing me to present. I believe it's been a few years since we last presented on our program. Just like to give some updates and kind of general awareness of what illicit discharge detection and elimination is. So as you may or may not know, the city holds a permit that allows us to discharge stormwater. Part of having that permit is we're having 6 BMPs, and one of those BMPs is the illicit discharge detection and elimination program. Here you can see here, I'm the IDD coordinator. I'm under engineering services, stormwater, and a part of the water quality section group. As you may or may not be aware, Raleigh has 2 separate systems. They have a sewer system and then also a storm sewer system. And that is the storm system is part of the MS4 multiple storm sewer system. And that allows us to discharge to creeks, natural water courses, etc. What exactly is an illicit discharge? Illicit discharge is any disposal, dumping, spill, or leak or otherwise discharge other than stormwater that goes into a stormwater drain, a drainage system, or natural water courses such as lakes or streams. This also includes land near a stream drain or a lake/stream where a substance may enter the stormwater system. So as you see here, we do have a program where we can have volunteers mark storm drain as well. If they're not marked, that's a good program that Joyce runs as well, if you need any contact with her. Illicit connections. We don't see these often. I think there might be one over the past decade or so that I've come across, but basically it's a pipe directly tied into our stormwater system. Usually PVC pipe draining from a washing machine, or in the case that we had was a pool discharged straight into the storm system. There are some discharge exemptions that we do allow. There's a long list of these. I'll just kind of leave these up here, but these discharges are allowable to the extent that as long as they do not decrease water quality significantly. So a lot of times it's just mostly potable water, dechlorinating the swimming pools, condensate from air conditioning, non-residential or non-profit car washing is allowable discharge. Here we have irrigation water, the discharge from pumping or draining of natural water courses or water bodies, pumping out your basement if it gets flooded or anything like that as well. And as I said again, these discharges are allowed as long as they do not decrease water quality downstream. Here are some of the most common examples of illicit discharges: motor oil dumped into a storm drain, wash water runoff from a commercial car wash, excessive antifreeze or other motor vehicles or motor fluids spilling from a car, paint, sanitary sewer overflows, hydraulic fluid spills, detergent clean fluids, and grease trap overflows, which we'll kind of go through some pictures later on. This is the process we go about in handling illicit discharges. Staff is notified either via complaint from a citizen or a fellow City of Raleigh employee. Then once we receive the complaint, we'll go on site, conduct a field investigation, determine if illicit discharge did occur. Once our investigation is complete, after taking photos, tracing the source if possible, etc., we'll try to determine the responsible party for the discharge or spill, and we'll also notice the property owner for the discharge as well as they are responsible. These responsible parties are then have 10 days after being notified to stop the spill and complete remediation. Once staff is made aware of remediation, we'll conduct a final site assessment and issue a notice of compliance. So here, what we're looking at is a chart of, since we've been logging all of our data online, or digitally, I should say, since 2014 or early 2015, and over 913 inspections completed since 2015, beginning of 2015, I believe, or 2014, I'm sorry. And as you can see, we've gradually been increasing the amount of inspections per year as well. So I believe the program is doing very well, as well as notifying the public of, what exactly illicit discharge is, what connotes us to wanting to conduct an investigation as well. So, see, and then here you can kind of see where drainage basins were a large portion of our investigations occurred. Crabtree being a big one, it's a large drainage watershed. Our largest source of discharge is a sanitary sewer overflow, whether that's City of Raleigh owned or private owned as well. And then this is kind of that same graph, but looking at the past year and a half or so. We've completed 185 inspections, 40 sanitary sewer overflows from City of Raleigh, about 30 from private entities over the last 16 to 18 months. Here we are looking at some sanitary sewer overflows examples. Here, this is a private entity. Their service line cracked or broke, started discharging. The tenants were trying to do the best they could, but the homeowner didn't take a lot of action there until the city came in. Here is an apartment complex. You have a private lift station that fell, discharged into this creek back here, which is what this is. Ran underneath Glenwood Road to Lake Ann. I think that was a cleanup of about 6,000 or 7,000 gallons of relief. Here we're kind of sanitary sewer flows. If, like I said, if the City of Raleigh is owned the sewer, they'll do repairs, remediation, and any reporting requirements to NCDEQ. Water quality staff we get provided summary events of these monthly, and we record these in our CityWorks application for tracking and end of year annual reporting. Private sanitary sewer flows are responsibility of the property owner. We routinely coordinate with Raleigh Water Code Enforcement for further enforcement. As you know, if the sanitary sewer does not discharge off property but is contained on property, we don't get involved unless it, it does enter into our storm system or into a natural water course. Raleigh Water does have the capability of shutting water off after 48-hour notice. So typically they're always involved most of the time. And then a lot of times if it does reach our storm system or a natural water course, that's when illicit discharge gets involved as well. Same as before, property owners have 10 days to make repairs and remediate. And also they have separate requirements with DEQ as well if they need to report or anything like that. Usually you'll need to report if you have 1,000 gallons spilled or any amount of sewage reaches a natural water course. And usually those 1,000 gallons, you'll need to issue a public statement explaining the discharge. Sanitary sewer overflows are largely due to blockages in the sewer system, either from debris such as racks, flushable wipes, grease, or tree roots. Here, what we're looking at is wash wastewater. You can see on the backside of this building, they have some wash pits and stuff where it doesn't look like there's any containment drains. It just all drains out the back. Follows the natural course of the parking lot, grade of the parking lot, and then into a storm system. You typically, these are found while staff are conducting dry weather flow inspections. And I can kind of get to that a little bit later in another slide, but at the outfall, you will see some of this milky white material or sudsy, might be sudsy material, et cetera. And it could be sometimes hard to trace back up, but it's, depends on how big the watershed is and how many chances you have could flow. Here's another area. You had a restaurant taking their mop water, et cetera, and just dumping it out the back of the restaurant and entering into a storm drain, which then ended up at the outfall as well. And here's right behind the restaurant. Next, we have grease interceptor overflows. Staff work closely with the FOG group, which is the Fast Oil Grease program under Raleigh Water. They do inspections annually on all the grease interceptors. You can see this one had a huge blockage and it just backed up out of their manholes into the parking lot. All sorts of solids and liquids coming out into the storm drain. Fuel and oil spills, largely these are found while conducting dry weather flows again, or citizen happens to see some type of fuel spill or someone dumping it into a drain, and they'll hopefully notify us quick enough so we can complete our investigation. Here you'll see some dry oil absorbent that was placed. City of Raleigh does have its spills as well, usually from hydraulic lines on the sanitary waste trucks driving around. They do have contracts in place for remediation and cleanup, which are usually that happens within the first hour or so of the fuel or the spill being noticed. So we're pretty responsive in that regard. Staff also have cleanup training as well, and they usually carry some type of absorbent in their vehicles as well to help mitigate any kind of downstream impacts. Yard waste, transportation and fuel services will handle any kind of cleaning. So if you see storm drain getting clogged, such as this picture indicates, then we will need to contact transportation. If you do happen to catch individual citizens, I would say if they're intentionally dumping their leaves into the storm drain, feel free to reach out to us. We'll make a field visit and speak with a homeowner to try to correct that action, possibly issue notice of violation. If you soil and erosion, we'll reach out to the active construction group, does inspections for all these family homes or large plots. Some other IDD program requirements, as mentioned, dry weather flow inspections. Recently, we've updated this to have over 1,000 prioritized outfalls that will need to be inspected per permit cycle. The goal is to complete roughly 20% of these every permit year. We also do quarterly outreach mailings and efforts, targeted mailings that are specific to certain pollutants that we have for each quarter. Landscape companies, food trucks, restaurants, any involves anything from where it's nitrogen spray, not mentioned, but fertilizer spraying, et cetera. And then we also do IDD training for new employees, and then that's occurs every 3 years as well. And then staff involved directly with the IDD program. We'll do a HAZWalker training. We'll do an 8-hour refresher, and then staff are looking at more involved training as well. Some program updates that we've completed over the last 18 months. We developed a program plan that helps set roles, schedules, and program expectations and references, or SOPs. This helps to lead the program for the foreseeable future. It's a good guideline to just keep the program moving along. In August, the program was put under NCDQ compliance audit. For a whole day or so, the program went through through all of our SOPs and plans, procedures and stuff. So no deficiencies were noted. There were a couple recommendations for further improvement. Staff have already implemented these recommendations in each of our plan. One of those, part of the audit was updating our major outfall inventory. Originally, we had designated about 300 or so outfalls, and then per DEQ's guidance, we changed those outfalls, the definitions of those outfalls, and then now we have over 1,000 priority outfalls. We plan to inspect these, about 20% of those every year. And then we also, one huge help, kind of citywide, was to streamline interactions with the public, and as far as our communications with, and then tracking also interdepartmental wise, as a lot of our reporting now is through CityWorks. That's a good way we can keep track. We can see, who took the call, who answered it, who investigated. The inspection reports are tagged to these service requests. Like I said, staff have a very good working relationship with our FOG program, Raleigh Fire Department, Transportation Field Services. We communicate a lot with these, specifically these three groups, also Raleigh Waters, code enforcement as well. Lots of communication throughout the year, all sorts of different issues that come along. We do have regular conversations with surrounding communities as well that have MS boards, NC States, City of Durham, and other municipalities. And then one of our final things that we've done in the last 18 months is website updates. We've been creating several different pollutant-focused sources, websites that help inform citizens and stuff what exactly, what this pollutant does and how it could affect local natural water courses. So. You can help Raleigh Stormwater with an extra set of eyes in the field for any illegal discharges or connections. Contact staff if anything looks suspicious or out of place. If you see a pipe draining water, but it hasn't rained for a few days, this may be an illegal connection, or it may be, might not even be a legal connection. It could just be a leaking water main as well. We've seen those sometimes as well. If you see anything going to a storm drain or a stream from a construction site or property, let staff know. We can follow up. If you do happen to report or see an illegal discharge, these are some of the things that we ask you to take note of: date, time, description of what you saw, location, or the name of business if applicable. And photos, as always. A big part of the program is being able to have documented evidence so that we can enforce it. Here you have our helpline. You need to report illegal discharge, or you can email illegal discharge at raleighec.gov. By reporting illegal discharges, you help protect our natural water supply, local streams, and the newsroom. Any questions? Sir?
Yes, generally, the number looking at the actual number of illicit discharges as opposed to the number of inspections every year to see whether that's going up or down. So I'm kind of assuming over time, we should be getting rid of most of the illicit connections, some of the stuff. Hopefully that number will be improved. I just wonder if you guys are running statistics on that.
Yeah, we do have, let's see. Go back. I know the one chart, this one chart that had.
Trying to read that, it's pretty small, so I couldn't pick it up.
Here, doesn't look like it's on this part. We do have another application of this program that will display what exactly, our inspections resulted in, whether it was a notice of violation, a warning letter, or an investigation where there was a non-bark issue. So we do have it. The website is in kind of in limbo with some staff departure recently. So we've been trying to work with other staff to help keep it running up. So I do apologize.
I'm just hoping with all the education, all the efforts you guys are putting into it, things are improving, but maybe they're getting better at finding stuff, and so you really can't see that trend.
That is one case, and we're always willing, we lean heavily on the public as well for notifying us for any possible illicit discharges. And it could just be that, hey, the public is becoming more aware of what the program, and they're just reporting more instances or more, stuff that just wasn't reported on before, so. But we're glad, a lot of times when we issue notice of violations, they're 95% of the time they're resolved within that 10-day period. So we work closely with those individuals that we hand out notice of violations to make sure that they have the follow-up is clear.
I guess the question, are you that you're doing the 200 inspections per year and you're doing, when the city has a notice of a sanitary sewer situation, are you the only person, or do you have, how is the responsibility here shared?
I'm the main responsible person as far as handling illicit discharges. I do have two other employees, Stephen and Justin, are there to help me. I'm the majority of those guys, yeah.
That's your priority role.
Yep.
You can meet on others.
Yep.
Which I think is an important point. We've got limited resources. It's a big city. We look to leverage other resources wherever we can. And kudos to Zachary and the team. They do a lot with the fire department. They do a lot with parks. As Zachary mentioned, all 5,000 something city employees get illicit discharge awareness training as new employees. And I think is it every 3 or 4 years?
Every 3 years.
Have to take it again. So we do rely on everyone to help contribute. And I think the point Mark made is a good one, that increased education awareness cuts both ways. It helps people be aware of what they shouldn't do, but then it also makes people aware of something wrong when they see it. So it's hard to correlate, if we're getting better in terms of overall water quality, which I hope we are, or just getting better at identifying the problems when we have them. It's probably some both, I would anticipate. But very important program. Zachary mentioned the MS4 audit. This was something that the state really focused in. It was a big focus of that audit. And, it turned out very well. I think they were impressed with our program, but we, strive to continuously improve with the benchmarks, the dashboards, really tracking what we're doing. The dry weather outfalls is something that we're really focusing on, how to prioritize where we do those inspections. We want to touch them all, but we also want to focus on the ones that have the highest risk of potential dry weather discharges, industrial areas, commercial areas. So it fits in with a lot of those other industrial permitting programs and issues as well. So it's a pretty complex program when you get down to it. And Zachary did a nice job giving a high level summary of it, but there's a lot of intricacies in terms of how you deploy your resources and how we leverage other resources available to us to try to get as much information as we can.
Since for 2023, we'll put you on the spot. What's the most memorable illicit discharge in the last year?
Yeah. We saw that grease trap overflow earlier. That was pretty nasty. The lift station, the private lift station at the apartment complex, so there's a couple of things wrong with that. Their alert system was either not functioning or disabled, because it's a loud red light, and then it has a loud alarm system with it as well. Neither of those were working when we arrived. We were notified by a Duke contractor who was completing remediation on the other side of Glenwood. He's like, "Hey, this creek's really black. What's going on here?" Staff went out and investigated. We saw the discharge coming from that lift station. We notified the apartment management group there. They started working on getting it fixed. They had a temporary fix in place. The temporary fix failed again, and so it started discharging again into the creek. And so that was a month-long endeavor about to get remediated completely. So it's there. Yeah, it's like I said, it's typically just some small private sanitary sewer overflows where they've got their service lateral that's clogged. And it's discharging out through their service cap, so cleanout cap. A lot of times, those are usually resolved within a couple of days at most. So.
Can I tell you mine? The one that's most memorable to me was I happened to go on a site visit. It was a drainage complaint from a citizen who had a sinkhole in their backyard. It was a private pipe, so we were looking at whether it would qualify for the drainage assistance program or maybe some other help. And the resident was quite upset that when we told her it was really her responsibility and we might be able to help. It might take a couple of years, realistically, to get to the program. And then I noticed a very small diameter PVC pipe that was coming out of the back of the house that went right into the drain. And I had to ask, what's that? And she just nonchalantly said, "Oh, that's my washing machine." So I had to. Then she really got upset with me. That's a legal discharge.
Introduce you to my friend Zach.
Yeah.
You remember that, yes.
But it is an awareness, issue. And, most people don't know, so I don't blame them for it. And, once she realized what it was, she fixed it, so they responded well. But a lot of it is just awareness of, what you can and can't put in the storm drain. And dishwasher or washing machine discharge is not both considered that. The discharge to be
It's not listed under allowable discharges.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. Very helpful. Thanks for all of your work.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
We stay busy, that's for sure.
You're very sure of it. I believe that may get us close to the end of the meeting. I just would close by saying if there are topics for the year that fit within our work plan and are of interest or things that we feel like we would like to learn more about, just shoot an email to me and Jamond, and then we can take it to Wayne as we're crafting agendas for the year. So there's a Google Drive that Wayne shares and with Jamond and I, and it's, you know, a couple months deep, but then so we kind of worked out a few things. But if there are things you're thinking of or you see around the city, then just definitely don't be afraid to ask. See if we can dial up a presentation or a conversation about it. So I think that's it. But unless anybody has a question on the topic, bring up anything interesting they've seen. Holidays. Stormwater. That's it. All right, so we make a motion.
Adjourn.
Second. Second over there. All in favor? We're done. All right. Thank you, guys.
So happy New Year.